Me? You? Me?
You
You wait.
always click the button.
I clicked the button, but we're live now.
No, it says it doesn't say what? It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
say
you're
live
live
on my
saying this
side.
right now. You're live, and you're saying this live.
Okay.
Gotcha. I guess. I don't know. I don't like being the first one to always speak when we're live. I was asking you, like, you want to say something? You want me like silent? You saw my finger thing.
Yes.
Whatever. This is why you have to tune in live or watch the video, because you wouldn't see the finger thing on Spotify or Apple.
So I'm sorry. I've been very distracted because there's a stain on my countertop, and I would like to know, Mr. Clean, if you have any advice for me.
You think that's funny?
I think it's hilarious.
Whatever. I choose to do this. I have a full head of glorious hair if I chose to. Well, not a full, but maybe half. I mean, there's some.
Well, right now you look like you could mop some floors and you would be very talented at it.
I guess that's a compliment you're throwing at me. I'll take it.
Right? That's not bad.
Oh man,
Mr. Clean's got some guns.
See that?
I do.
Big gun, me strong, Mr. Clean. Wait.
Oh boy.
See? Wait, where'd you go? Grace, you lost the video.
I did.
What are you doing?
I don't know what happened. It's technical issues, but I'll get there.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep talking because that's what everybody wants to hear is my voice. Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
So, this is unlucky show number 113.
We're gonna turn it into a lucky show because we have Erica Lubera on the show, so it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I agree. How was your past weekend?
Past weekend was good. I spent the weekend primarily in Forksville, Pennsylvania, which is right next to a place where a little race happens called the World's End Ultra. And so I put in some training miles, not nearly as much as I had hoped originally, but I'm still recovering from this bronchitis. And then got to celebrate. I went to a bridal shower for Julia Purple Haze Martin. Whoa. And Snowplow Joe.
Wow. Joe. I didn't even know that. Congratulations to both of them.
Yeah, so they have not tied the knot yet, but it's in the books. It is happening, and congratulations to them. I'm so excited. Yay.
Awesome sauce. Yes, very big, very big. All right, I don't really enough about your weekend. Can we start the show now?
We can start the show. We started it, actually.
Okay, well, not till I push the button because I'm in control. So, whatever. You ready?
We'll go with that. Sure.
Okay. Grace, we're going to welcome Erica Lubera on today to talk about her great run on the Mid-State Trail where she set the women's FKT unsupported.
Unsupported.
On episode 113.
Bam.
I'm Eric Idiot Runner Kosek.
And I'm Grace Hot Pants Langheim. Eric is all business in the front of the pack, and I am all about the party in the back.
That's right, business up front and party in the back. Together, we are the Running Mullet.
And we are going to talk about every aspect of running, the podium to the DNF and everything in between.
If you are a runner, this show is for you. Now sit back, get out your foam roller, and enjoy the party.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a very nice weekend here. I don't know about where, I'm guessing where you weren't far from me, so it wasn't very nice. Yeah. But it still hasn't stopped. It's Monday, and it's rained every 5 minutes throughout the day, even though it really wasn't supposed to. It just downpoured again, and it's sopping wet up here.
Yeah, we needed it down south. We had a burn ban. There was a portion of the Michaud State Forest that burned, which was pretty awful. The Appalachian Trail goes straight through there. And so we really needed the water. But yeah, it was raining all weekend. It wasn't bad though. it was, I mean, honestly, I need the heat training, but oh well, you know.
It's springtime.
Yeah, it is.
It rains
And
in the spring.
it rains in the spring, and FKTs happen in the spring. Oh, really quick. Go Jordan, go. Jordan's running Cocodona 250 right now. So I had to throw that out there. And he is another FKT friend. We have a couple of folks who've come on the show before who have done FKTs. I've done some. You've done some. You did the Mid-State Trail. And so we're having Erica. She's a returning guest. She's been on the show before. We're going to bring her on because I have so many questions.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I can't even, I guess she's coming on. You just pop her right on there.
I did.
I wanted to like introduce her and stuff. So
say all the things to her face though.
Thanks for joining us, Erica. The Mid-State Trail is a 329 mile from all the accuracies trail that runs from south to north, north to south through Pennsylvania, through some of the most gnarliest country in PA, I would say. I know the Appalachian Trail has a lot of rocks and stuff like that, but so does the Mid-State. It's not used as much, so it can be a little, there's a lot of volunteers out there that do a lot of trail work, but it can be a little less unmaintained. There's some sections of private property that don't get maintained at all. So it's a challenge. I don't know. We'll talk to Erica about what she had for elevation gain. I forget what it was, but it's a crap ton. So yeah, the FKT on the Mid-State Trail, fastest female, unsupported is the most important word. She carried everything with her for the entire length of the trail, was not supported by a single soul. And this was on your third attempt at this goal. There's words that come to mind: grit, perseverance, grind. I was thinking today all day long, and I had a lot more than those cute little 3 ones, but like there's so much. And like she went back and attempted what she failed a first time and made it a little farther. Then she went back a third time and completed what needed to be done. That takes a lot. So congrats, Erica. Erica, what was your actual finish time?
It's so weird. I actually haven't sat down and calculated it down to the seconds, but it was 7 days, 4 hours and 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, it was a little off of my a goal, but I know I put everything out there plus some, so I'm very happy with it. Like, I know that by shooting for this big goal that I had, that I ensured that I left nothing left to question whether I could have done better. So I'm very happy with that time.
Yeah, and I want to add that she literally hit the road sign and finished this on Saturday. So this is very fresh and very new. And I highly doubt that you are even caught up on your sleep yet.
No.
And your brain has not recovered yet.
No.
So thanks for joining us for this quick talk about it, because it's close to my heart because it's in Pennsylvania. And I've been on the trail, and several other friends of mine have done the trail. So it's very cool to see you finally complete it.
Huge inspiration. Now, before we have so many questions, can you explain to the audience? So an FKT means fastest known time. Can you explain what unsupported means?
Yeah, me?
Yeah.
Okay. So the unsupported style essentially means that you are required to carry everything that you will need from the very start. So food, snacks, battery power, that kind of thing. I think the only real exception is water. You're allowed to pick up water along the way from natural sources or public access. So if you're going through a state park and they have a spigot that's open to the public, you can use that, but you're not allowed to stop at Sheetz and buy a water, or buy anything or pick anything up. You can't cache food along the way. And so that's one side of the unsupported part of it, but the other part of the unsupported style is you're also not allowed to have support from people. So no one is allowed to meet you out there, spend miles with you, cheer you along the way. You're just kind of you're supporting yourself emotionally. You're allowed to make phone calls, so I could tell my husband I was safe, I was fine, I made it to camp, give him progress updates, but I kept the actual like communication to pretty minimum. Just honestly, logistically, it's difficult, and I only had so much battery power out there, and I needed that to navigate and track, so I couldn't really use my phone.
So it's an interesting thing doing an unsupported fastest known time, because you have also through hiked the Appalachian Trail. So you know what it's like to be out there for months as a hiker, stopping along the way, but you're also a very accomplished trail runner. So you know what it's like to do 100 miles in a relatively short period of time compared to this, but you have lots of support along the way. So this is like a blend between the two, where you're out there for 7 days, but you have just yourself to rely on, and a lot of miles in a short period of time in compared to through hiking, but maybe a little bit longer in comparison to trail running because of how much stuff you have to carry. I feel like it's this weird blend between the two.
It is. And when I first started down this journey, I thought, oh, it's perfect. I love trail running and I love backpacking. This will just be a merging of my two passions. And what I found out was it was a completely different animal. It's not just trail running and backpacking meet each other and are happy together. It's a completely different experience. And that was something that I learned after my first attempt. And I had to kind of take that into consideration and learn, like, okay, what do I love about this that is different from trail running and different from through hiking and backpacking? Because I know I like it and I want to keep doing it, but I can't approach it with the mindset of this is just two things I like coming together.
Yeah. So Mid-State Trail, we already said it's 300, what'd you say, Eric? 324?
329 is what I've always gone by.
Yeah, 329 miles. How many feet of gain?
55,000 feet of elevation gain.
55,000 feet of elevation gain. And this trail is a kind of a north to south trail.
I went northbound, right? So I went southbound. And I'm not really sure. I like that I did it that way. I've done it northbound, so going from Maryland to New York. All three times they went the same direction. I'm not really sure like how different it would be going the other direction.
Yeah.
You get through that crappy private land right away.
Yeah. But then I might have quit earlier.
Yeah, I know. So before we continue, I was lucky enough to watch her, to be there when she finished, which I was very, very happy I had the time to do. But I was also lucky enough to see her about 1.5 miles from the finish. And I was the first person to see her. But anyway, I didn't acknowledge her. I didn't talk to her. But she said 3 important words to me. She said, and this is live, so I'm not going to say the real words, but you can put them, you can imagine what the words were. She said, "Screw this crap." So those, I think everybody can put the right words in the right places of what she really said. But it was beautiful, because that's how she felt at that point. And I understood how she felt. I mean, she was done, and it was pouring down rain on her at the end. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, those last 2 days were rough.
Yeah. So before I want to go through the whole thing. But now that we have a feeling for, oh my gosh, we do. It's going to happen. So now that we have a little bit of the scope of this, and it's a very gnarly trail, how are you feeling right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm tired. My sleep schedule is all out of whack. So like, I'll fall asleep and then wake up an hour later and be wide awake, because that's what I did on trail. And, so my sleep patterns are all out of whack. But otherwise I feel pretty good. My pain is down to a manageable amount. I'm no longer taking anti-inflammatories. So thank goodness. Although I'll probably still take some tonight to sleep because that's usually when it gets really bad. That's one thing that like I've talked to like Bob Stewart and some other folks who have done the unsupported style, and like the hip pain that you get from just carrying a pack and moving so much in such a short period of time is pretty extreme. And I'm hopeful it'll just go away very fast.
How are your feet?
Oh, they are still swollen. I have cankles.
Okay.
They're lovely.
Do you have all of your toenails right now?
One of them is 100% detached, but being stubborn. It was a very unique and kind of, and this is going to sound crazy, but fun experience to try to manage it. But I got an under toenail blister on day 2.
Oh.
And I'd never had one before. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting to try to treat on day 2 and have to live with for the next 5 days. But with a knife, a lighter, a Band-Aid, and some leukotape, I was able to get it to the end, and I don't think it's infected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was very proud of my first aid skills in that moment to get to test that out.
Yeah.
Has your brain longed to be back out there yet?
It's so funny you ask. As we were driving to the Burn and Barrel after the finish, because we went to go check out the Canyon Man race before we went home, we passed an orange blaze, and I was like, oh, no, I don't want to see that right now. But I think what I'm longing for is honestly just like laying outside and relaxing. Because I did not get to do a lot of that on the trail. It was mostly just relentless forward movement, and any time spent laying down was very practical and necessary to continue a pace that I needed to maintain. So I would like to lay in a hammock and listen to birds and drink wine. That's what I want to do right now, but it's raining. So
yeah.
I know when I did it, and it was the only time I felt this way, and I'm guessing it was several weeks after, not 3 days after like you. That's why I asked. But I definitely had that feeling of like that, like it was a friend that I was emotional. Like I wanted to be back out there, and I couldn't understand what these feelings were that was like it was constantly there because it did suck. And I was very happy to be done. I was very happy with what I did, but I literally like all I wanted to do was be back there. Like I missed it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are definitely moments that even now, just a couple of days after the fact, I look back on and I think like that was great. That was wonderful. I really liked that moment. With sleep deprivation comes a lot of like emotional struggle for me, but on the other end of things, I also get these like euphoric moments where like I see water cascading over a rock and I think this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you don't get those moments I mean, I get them when I backpack and when I'm out in the woods, and that's why I like doing these things, but it's just a little bit more amplified when you're like tired and you're actually seeing these things from a perspective of like contrast, I guess.
And I think when you're out there for that long, at least for myself, I have to put myself into a headspace that like this is where I'm going to be for, like, I don't really think about next week or next month or anything. Yeah. I just like in my brain, this is where I live now. That's what I tell myself. So then when you're out of it, it's like, wait, I told myself that I live there now, and now I don't live there, and that's weird.
Well, and I like what you were saying about the rocks and the waterfalls and anything else that was weird that probably isn't that special when you're in normal conditions, is that moment is yours and only yours forever. And that's why like I'm a fan of like doing this, pretending I'm taking a picture when I'm running by myself. I do it all the time. Like sunrises, you know, I take a picture because that's literally a moment in time that only is yours. It's not even worth trying to explain to somebody or how it looked and how beautiful it was. I don't care to, but I think it's pretty neat to recognize that that's yours forever. And you can only get them if you notice them, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It's all about the moment, and it can't be replicated or
Yeah.
Now tell us, let's start from the beginning. Why did you choose the Mid-State Trail?
That's a good question. the Mid-State Trail actually holds a very personal place in my heart. I'll try not to go into too much detail
Do it.
because this could be a really long story, but I'll keep it short. Basically, I found hiking and trail running and backpacking in my mid-20s during a period of my life that was really hard for me. After a long period of time, that was really hard for me, mentally and like emotionally, mental health wise. And I had moved into my parents' basement and they lived near Rothrock State Forest, and I discovered the Mid-State Trail, and that was kind of like where everything came to me. Like I saw my first backpacker on the Mid-State Trail, and I saw my first trail runner on the Mid-State Trail, and eventually I had my first backpacking trip that I ever did, solo, mind you. So it was my first trip, and it was my first solo trip on the Mid-State Trail in Rothrock State Forest. Actually, in the same section, Eric, that I went to meet you when you were doing your supported FKT, where you passed Joe Hayes Vista.
Mm-hmm.
So I had hiked from Tussey Mountain Ski Resort to Joe Hayes Vista and back, and that was my first backpacking trip, and I was all by myself, and I was afraid of everything, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought snakes could hear me if I sang loud enough so that they slither away. And it was just like the Mid-State Trail as what was my gateway drug, I guess, to everything. And after the Appalachian Trail, I remember meeting you, Eric, for your attempt in that section. And I don't know who brought it up or how it came up, but the idea of the unsupported style came up, and it just caught my attention. And I thought, I think I could do that. After spending 6 months on trail, I think I know something about carrying a backpack for a long time. And I think I could do something like that. I didn't realize how long of a journey it would be. So that would have been in 2020 that the idea first kind of was born to do this on the Mid-State Trail. And a fun fact, the Mid-State Trail, I've only ever backpacked on it alone. I've never actually shared miles on that trail with anyone else. So like I thru hiked with my husband on the Appalachian Trail, but he's never backpacked with me on the Mid-State Trail.
Wait, you shared miles with me when I did my FKT.
That wasn't backpacking.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, so like carrying a backpack camping outside, I've only ever done that alone on the Mid-State Trail, which is about to change this year because Wild Roots is hosting a backpacking trip on the Mid-State Trail in one of the most beautiful sections. So I'm very excited to share that with everyone. But up until that point, it's only been a solo backpacking trail for me.
It's been like a private relationship between you and the Mid-State.
Yes, it's both a good and a tormented relationship. We've had a relationship that has definitely like expanded over the years.
Yeah. Well,
for the record, when I did my attempt, Erica met me to pace me one morning where she was stuck at. Is that called Joe Hayes Vista? That where the road is? Yep. And I think I said this before on the show, but it was long episodes ago, many episodes ago. But she brought me this loaded bagel sandwich from Sheetz, and it had everything on it. It even had a name, but I don't know. But at the time, it was heaven to me. Like melting cheese all over my face. Absolutely amazing. And I swear to you, Erica, I swear to you, if this was a supported attempt or you were able to take food, I was going to drive the 2.5 hours to meet you at that exact spot, just so you know, with that freaking sandwich, whether you ate it or not.
Yeah, I think the name was something like something Texas, right? It was like I don't know. It was something Western styled, and I was like, "There's an avocado on this. There's an egg on this. Like this is the one."
Yeah,
I've got all the things.
I really wanted to bring one. I should have brought one to the finish. Oh well.
That's okay. My stomach was pretty shrunken by the time we got there. I got there to the finish. I think that those 2 pieces of pizza were too much as it was.
Oh.
So let's go with that then. Tell us about nutrition, food, water. What was your plan? And then like what actually happened?
for the most part, my nutrition worked out really well. That's one of the benefits of having failed twice before is I got to work out some kinks in my nutrition. So my morning routine and my night routine were freaking perfect. I loved everything about what I did then. So in the morning, I would do what I call my breakfast shake, which is a carryover from the Appalachian Trail. It's something I started doing on the AT, and I still enjoy it. It's just like a scoop of green powder. So that's my green vegetable nutrition. A packet of breakfast essentials, like chocolate shake mix you can buy at the store, and a Starbucks instant coffee packet. And that's just my breakfast. And then for the rest of the day, I'm just snacking all day long. I don't have any like sit down meals or anything that I have to cook. It's all just like on the go food. And then for and we can talk about more of that later, but because these are the staples that I really liked and I'll continue doing, my night meal, like before bed, was what you would think is breakfast, but it's like cereal basically. So it's like a ton of granola, the highest calorie granola I can find, with like pumpkin seeds or whatever's healthy, a scoop of chia seeds, and whey protein powder as my milk. So you just add a little bit of water and you have basically cereal, and it's easy to house right before you're about to like pass out. And I love those things because it was so hot every single day, except for like the last day. And I was not trained for that heat, by the way. That was completely out of left field for my body and conditioning. All I wanted all day long was something like juicy and something like an apple or an orange or grapes or something. And I didn't have anything like that. So my breakfast shake and my dinner cereal was like the closest thing I could get to something juicy without being water.
Awesome. Now, what were some of the snacks that you had?
My go-to is my Gorp mix, which is almonds, walnuts, and M&Ms, and that's all it is like one little snack size Ziploc is about 1,000 calories. So super condensed calorie, really good on the like ounce to calorie ratio. So like you get a lot of calories for carrying less pounds. And then some of my favorite things were gummy bears, but I didn't bring as many because they're very heavy for the calories that you get. I just wish I had more of those because they were so delicious. And the things that I thought would be the best and ended up not being the best because of how hot it was were combos and Cheez-Its. I love those things ordinarily, but because of how hot it was, I stopped producing saliva at one point, and every time I'd try to eat them, I'd have to like take in like water to replace the saliva I was not creating in order to swallow it. Otherwise, I just have this like chalk in my mouth.
Yeah.
And that's all you had. Like I couldn't swap it out. I couldn't get something different. I was stuck with what I had started with. And I think I would still do that. If I think I just wasn't trained for the heat, and so it affected me in ways that I wouldn't have normally thought.
Now, how were the water sources? It has been a drier year. Did you have plenty of water?
There were a few water carries where I had to like camel up. I know my own self pretty well that like I usually only need about a liter for every 10 miles on a hot day. But there was a few sections where like there was no water for 20 miles. And I'd have to fill up not only the water bottle that I planned on drinking, but an extra bag of water, like oh my gosh, what's it called? A CNOC, that I could have backup dirty water so that when I run out of the water that's clean and in my bottle, I can then filter what I'm carrying in my pack, which is not great because water is very heavy. Yeah. Every 1 liter of water is 2.2 pounds. So on the days where I had to carry extra, I was adding on an extra 2 pounds. Towards the north, once you get to Pine Creek, there's water everywhere.
Okay.
Like you're golden. You can stop for water whenever you want. But the southern section was definitely a little bit more dispersed. Rothrock, especially, there's just not a lot of water.
Okay. Now, what? Speaking of weight, what was your base weight?
I don't actually remember. My pack weight overall was 29 pounds.
Okay. Wow.
I was really proud of that. I've worked
That's light.
When I did this the first time in 2022, my pack weight was 32 pounds.
Yeah.
So I lost 3 pounds of my pack weight, and I made a lot of changes to get it there. But based on my like spreadsheets, my food was 15 pounds. My water was 2 pounds. So that means the rest of it was probably 12. Like my base weight was probably about 12.
That's impressive. So was there anything that you brought that you didn't use?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
My rain mitts. It didn't rain until the last day, and it was still too hot that I didn't even need the rain mitts. I just ran with no gloves at all. But I'm glad I took them because I don't think I could have guessed that it was going to be 80 degrees.
Yeah.
For the last week of April. Like, honestly, like I have on my wall, I just took it down, but I had Post-it notes of the temperature, the weather norms for the past 20 years.
Wow.
And 85 is like the max. Like, how did this happen? But yeah, lucky me.
So you obviously came into it with a plan, especially since you attempted it before. When you're sleeping, what you were eating, amount of calories per day, and all that. That goes without saying. In ballpark, did it all pretty much work out as you had planned, or was there anything catastrophic that happened that you needed to, fix or change along the way to keep moving?
One thing comes to mind. As a general rule, as a general tendency, I put very low importance on anti-inflammatories and pain relievers. And so in my planning and in my packing, I just kind of threw a bunch of pills in a bag, and I was like, oh, it's probably good. It was not. It was not enough. I needed way more. And by day 3, I was counting out the number of, I think I had Advil and Tylenol with me. I was counting out the number that I had, and I realized I would have to do half doses. So I would take 1 Advil instead of 2. I would take 1 Tylenol instead of 2 every 3 to 4 hours until the end of the day, where I would allow myself to take more. And I had to save at least a full dose. So like two Advil is what I preferred before bed, because my hip pain gets so bad at some point that I can't sleep. And once I lay down, within a certain amount of time, I'm just rolling around kind of in agony. And if I don't have the anti-inflammatories, like that's a definite. I'm definitely going to have to deal with that. But with anti-inflammatories, I get a little bit more sleep. It's a little bit more comfortable. So I definitely wish I had planned that out a little bit more thoroughly and didn't treat it so lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
That's not bad. That's not bad though, if that's the worst of it.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the worst planning error I think I made.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. One other thing I did not plan out, and this kind of worked out. I had it in my itinerary that I was going to ford Stony Fork, which is a pretty big creek, especially after buckets of rain have fallen from the sky. And I had in my itinerary that I was going to ford that creek sometime around midnight or 1 a.m. And just kind of by accident and due to no circumstances that I actually was aware of what I was doing, I didn't make it to that point. I stopped ahead of time. I actually camped 5 miles short of Stony Fork instead of crossing it. And that night we got buckets and buckets of rain. And by the time I got to Stony Fork in the morning, it was an incredibly flooded stream. And I got swept away, and I had to navigate myself back to shore after having been stranded on a rock in the creek. And if I had crossed in the dark during the peak of the rainfall, I'm sure it would have been completely impassable in a much more serious situation. It was already a pretty serious situation, but I think it would have been impossible at that point. I would have just been kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
Was that the scariest part? I hope. Okay. I don't want to hear even worse stories. So
that was the scariest part. And the thing was, I thought I was doing all the right things, and I did a lot of the right things. I unclipped my pack. I moved all of the important items to a spot where, like, if the water went up to my rib cage, which it did, I could know that those things were safe and not going to get waterlogged. Like my phone and my inReach. My inReach was in my shirt pocket. And I, navigated across the creek, facing against the current, moving against it like you're supposed to, and slowly and with all points of contact like you're supposed to. The first spot I tried to cross was right where the trail tells you to cross. And it quickly was up to my rib cage. I was like, nope. That's only going to get deeper. We're not going that way. A couple years ago, I had actually forded that creek as like a test run. I went out to see what it looked like and did it like while it was low. And I knew there was a section further down that was not as deep. I couldn't see that this time because the water was brown and high and you couldn't see the bottom at all. But I knew from past experience, like, this is lower. I'm going to try down there. So I started crossing again, and I made a crucial mistake. I put my foot out before I put my trekking pole out to test the depth, and it was too deep. And that's when I got swept. There were 2 boulders behind me. I missed the first one and I got the second one.
Wow.
And I held onto the boulder, and I honestly can't tell you how I got from that point back to the shore. I don't remember. It was one of those like adrenaline situations where you're just like completely focused on whatever it is you need to do. And then the third time I got across, and then I definitely took a lot of time afterwards to recover from that emotionally, thinking like, what am I doing?
Right. And what day was this?
This would have been day
5 or 6.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so I mean, you're not done yet. At least you have most of it behind you.
Yeah, let me see. Actually, that's a good question, because I feel like day 4 I ended up at the beginning of Pine Creek. So this would have been day 5.
So day 5, and on day 5 you can, decision making also becomes really difficult. So now you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Like, I made it across. I'm fine. But was that worth the risk? And I wasn't sure. Eventually, I remember I was getting close to Antrim. There's this really cool spot, and this is part of the trip I'm doing in June with Wild Roots, where there's like this rock bypass, really cool rock section. And I knew I had service there. So I called Jesse and I was like, I have to tell you what just happened, because I need you to talk to me about it and tell me how stupid I am. And he was like, that happens to me all the time when I'm fly fishing. You made it. And I was like, oh. And he just totally normalized it for me and made me feel like I did all the right things. And he was like, I'm proud of you for figuring it out. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm fine.
You are. And you made it.
Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely the scariest moment. And one of the things where, like, looking back, I could have planned that day better. I could have, because it didn't turn out to be a problem, because I cut the previous day short and I got there in the daylight. But if I hadn't, and I had just pushed on and gotten there when I was supposed to get there, it would have been just a terrible situation. Yeah.
So let's talk about bright spots. What were some of your favorite moments out there?
The first 2 days were completely silent. It was really nice. Just me in the woods, listening to the birds and the wind and the sounds of nature. And that was it. And it was just really nice to have, it was kind of like an escape. I was still feeling good at that point, and it was beautiful. So that definitely was a highlight. I love taking dirt naps. I had to limit them to when they were absolutely required, but it's just so freeing to just be like, I'm gonna lay down right here, wherever you are, and just be like, I can sleep in this pile of dirt. I can sleep on this roadside for 10 minutes. and you do what you want, and it's just like freedom.
Mm-hmm. Now when you do an unsupported, of course, there are people on the trail, so you can't avoid people altogether. Of course, you just have to avoid, you can't have any support from people you know. But you do come upon other hikers and other people. Were there any cool interactions that you had? Did people like stop you and say, are you homeless or are you...
I did not see a lot of hikers actually at I think so. When I day one, I camped in Tenley Park, which is a town in Everett, or in the town of Everett, and a cop talked to me. He just wanted to make sure I was safe.
Make sure you're okay. Yeah, which you were, so that's good.
Yeah, he was like, well, he knew I was camping there because I had a permit for that night. So he was just like, if there's any hoodlums, call 911. I'm like, got it. And so, yeah, that was one conversation I had, but it was at the end of the day. I was trying to go to sleep, but it was more just like, you're being so nice, but I've got to go to sleep now. And then I didn't see anyone else until I was close to Ravensburg. So 200 miles in, almost 180 miles in. And he's actually the president of the Mid-State Trail Association, and he was weed whacking, and I could hear him from like a mile away. I'm like, what is that sound? As I got closer, I realized that it was a weed whacker, and we talked for a little bit, and that actually was a really cool moment where he was like, well, I better let you go because of what you're doing. I was like, well, it's kind of nice to talk to someone, but okay. Yeah, I guess you can let me go.
What a great opportunity. So how were the trail conditions? Because that trail can be pretty gnarly, but this year, I don't know about you, but trail conditions have seemed to look better this year.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I started earlier than I have in past years. So in general, just the growth wasn't there that would be there in a couple of weeks. But I also saw some noticeable like trail maintenance. The miles into Everett, in my mind, there's 3 briar ridges. You know, you do like a briar section, you come down off the mountain, you go back up, you do another briar section, you do that 3 times. The 3rd one was completely maintained, and I didn't even recognize the trail. It was completely passable. Don't even think I touched a briar on that section. Wow. So I was so excited to get there and see that. And similarly, coming out of Everett, there's another section of briars and rocks, and that one was a little bit more grown, but you could tell someone had been through. Like you could see like where some of it was cut off, and that was definitely really nice to see. Wow. I want to say like most of the issues I came across were blowdowns until you get to Wellsboro, and then it's just kind of, whatever. There are sections like Eric said where I don't think anyone actually maintains it. The trail could literally go in any direction, but the blazes say this way, so you go this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the section you're talking about, like Everett and with the ridges, like people have to realize there are volunteers everywhere down there, but it's so hard to get up there to maintain it. You have a big climb up, and then I believe there was like 10 miles at some point, 10-mile ridge or 6 or 8-mile ridge with no road crossings or anything. So you talk about hauling a chainsaw up there, like it's an all-day thing just for 1 or 2 trees.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I definitely didn't want it to sound like I was complaining about lack of effort on the trail maintainer's part. It's definitely a really hard to get to section, but it's also a really hard to traverse section. It's knife edges of rocks. You don't have a really good stable spot to wield a tool like that. Right. So I can definitely see why it is the way it is.
Yeah. And I think a lot of trail clubs are kind of, once you hit like around Memorial Day, I feel like that's their goal, is to get stuff cleared by Memorial Day, because over the winter months, there's a lot of trails that you just can't maintain. It doesn't make sense. And so everything gets blown down over the winter, and there's so many great people who clear trails. And when you head out a little bit early, then sometimes you hit your blowdowns.
Yeah.
But the trail, I don't know about you, but it seems like the trails have just been, in comparison, just really great condition this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And in a sense, I like that, Mid-State Trail, it's called the wildest trail in Pennsylvania. I think, it has to
Yeah.
earn you, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
be a pristine trail and still be the wildest trail in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. You gotta come back with a couple briar scars and
Yeah.
everything,
And I've got those.
Yeah. You don't want it to be
For
too
sure.
easy.
Mhm.
I have more questions. I had a good one. Go, Eric. Well, I think
I have a hard time getting any words in because you're just rapid firing these questions.
Sorry.
You gotta start raising my hand again. Gee. So your sleep schedule, did you just was your plan to just take the random dirt naps, or did you sleep for set hours at night? And if so, when did you start trekking in the wee hours of the morning most days?
My strategy was to sleep 4 hours every night at least.
Okay.
So I definitely had like a set time where I'd hoped to be like setting up camp, getting a solid amount of sleep, and then getting out of camp. And that was a strategy that I created specifically for myself because I believe, and I mean, I haven't tested out a lot of different strategies, but I believe I need that amount of sleep in order to be able to manage my emotional functions.
Yeah.
And like, so everyone going into an unsupported FKT, but any FKT, I feel like we all go into it with our own strengths and weaknesses. One of mine is sleep deprivation. I'm really bad with it. And I was trying to come up with a way that I could stay on top of it for as long as possible. So that went really well for the first few nights. I think for the first 4 nights, I was able to lay down and get 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And that started to break down once the hip pain started getting worse. So the time that I was laying down, I wasn't getting that sleep. And that's when I started bringing in a lot more dirt naps. And I started to find that like, during the cooler parts of the day, I might be able to get 10 to 15 miles in before I needed my first dirt nap. But once the hotter part of the day started coming around, so like between 2 and 5 p.m. or 1 and 5 p.m., I would need a dirt nap every 5 to 7 miles to keep going. And I would keep pushing until I noticed that my pace was starting to suffer because of whatever I was emotionally feeling or dealing with. So there are moments where I'm literally like on day 5 or on day 6, I'm just running through the forest with a backpack crying because that's what happens when I go through sleep deprivation. I just cry. It's really embarrassing, but it's just kind of what happens. But then eventually my pace starts to suffer too, and I'm not able to even move. My body starts telling me I can't move my body, or my mind starts telling me I can't move my body anymore. And that's when I would stop and do like a little 15-minute dirt nap. Usually I only needed 8 minutes, but I would use the other 6 minutes to like prep some things in my backpack, get my snacks out, do whatever I needed to do for the next 10 miles.
Did you talk to yourself a lot?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
A whole big bunch. And I talked to the trail a lot and everything else out there.
You see any bears?
No bears.
No?
Nope. I saw a bunch of porcupines, like
Yeah.
a ton. When do they sleep? Because I see them in the daytime. I see them in the nighttime. Like
They're in the daytime, yeah.
They're mostly nocturnal, but yeah, they're out in the day.
I definitely see them more in the nighttime, but I see them enough in the daytime that I'm just confused. Like, when do you guys sleep? Funny story about porcupines. This was, I was climbing Gamble Run Hill. It's a really long climb, and I had gotten past the part where you're going up like the ravine, and now I'm in the woods and I'm surrounded by mountain laurel. And I look up and there's a porcupine on the trail in front of me, and I'm like, ugh, I'm tired. It's freaking 11 o'clock at night. This is the latest night I hiked, because usually I'd stop around sundown, wake up at 2 a.m., start hiking, something like that. And this was the first night where I was going off that schedule, and I was hiking till midnight to wake up closer to 4 a.m. the next morning, and I was just exhausted. I'm like, get off the trail. Usually I'd sit and wait and like let them get off the trail on their own. But this time I was like, no, dude, you gotta go. I was clanging my trekking poles. Every time I tapped my trekking poles together, he would perk up and take a couple steps towards me. I'm like, no.
The opposite of what I'm doing.
I scare you. And it kept happening to the point where I started backing up because I'm like, this dude's approaching me. He's getting really close. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I am the predator here. Like, I should not be backing up from this porcupine. And I just walked through the laurel bushes and went around him. But he really wanted my trekking poles. I think he thought they were really cool sticks. And
they are.
Yeah, I thought I could do something fun with them. I don't know. But that was a fun porcupine moment.
Huh. Cool.
Never had that experience before. Usually they go run behind a small tree where they think they're hidden and you can see 95% of their body.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not the fastest creatures, but they don't have to be because they got the weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy porcupines. They make me laugh.
Nice.
Now, Barb, also known as Miss America, I have to call her by her trail name. So Miss America had asked, was there anything specific in training that seemed to help? And I know this has been in your head and you've had a couple of attempts, but in this past year, is there anything different that you did in your training? Anything specific that you did to lead up to this?
I think so. One thing that comes to mind is I ran with my backpack more. And I have a lot of friends who are very patient with me and would let me join them for their run while I carried 15 to 25 pounds and was definitely not able to keep their pace. And they would hang back with me. And that I'm really grateful for anyone who did that kind of training with me. Callie, Angie, Becky, everyone that attended that one run we did in Pine Creek that one day. Laura, thank you guys. I think I needed to run with the pack more because I had realized based on past attempts what my sleep problems are going to be and that I would have to move faster. And I'd have to rely on my ability to run with a pack in order to make the mileage I needed to make and get the sleep that I that I think I needed to get.
Yeah. And I think you did do a couple of races that were had a little less support than a typical ultra.
Yeah.
Where you have aid stations all the time, you know?
And thank you for that suggestion, Grace. I think you're the one who brought the Hot Twat 100 on my radar. Which is a really cool race. If anyone has not heard of the Hot Twat 100 or the Cold Twat 100, it stands for the Wild Oaks Trail, so it is an acronym. It's a really cool unsupported race. Basically, you do a 28-mile loop 4 times, and your car is your aid station. You are your support. There are no pacers. There is no crew. And you just you go out there and you do it. There is a race director. His name is Guy, who hangs out in the parking lot and just makes sure that you come back each loop and you're not still out there wandering around in the forest on your own. So there are definitely some safety precautions, but it's a very unsupported and cool event.
Yeah. And now, what about Digger Johnson? Does that have a little less support? Yeah.
Yeah, I oh my gosh, and that was such a cool race. It definitely has more support than the Wild Oaks Trail race, but it's not flagged, which I really liked. You have to know where to turn, and there was very few aid stations. So like you would be going long stretches of mileage without seeing an aid station, and you'd have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. So
that was a beautiful race though. Like I mean, not to say the Wild Oaks Trail wasn't a beautiful course, but I mean, it's hard to compete with New Hampshire.
Yeah. So a couple races that were a little less supported than your typical ultra that, you know, we're used to, I think, in Pennsylvania with lots of support. Was that helpful, at least as a confidence booster?
As a confidence booster, yes, but also I think I got the most out of the Wild Oaks Trail just because I was so sleep deprived during that race, just naturally. I had come off of a 3-week like period of time where I was getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep because of work and travel. And then I went right into this race having not enough sleep, and I spent the entire race struggling with sleep deprivation. And I know you're not supposed to train sleep deprivation, but it was an accident and it was very helpful. It was helpful to find out that, like, even if I tried napping 8 times and it didn't take and it didn't work, the 9th time could work. And that was something that I really needed to know, is that, like, just because everything feels like a lost cause and it feels like it's never going to get better, you have to trust the future and keep trying and know that it can turn around. And if you quit now, you'll never find out at what point it could have turned around.
Oh, I like all that. That's a good way to put it.
I feel like we could just repeat that 5 times. Oh, that's the stuff right there. You never know when it's going to turn around. So you just keep moving forward until you can't anymore.
All right. As we gently start to close things up, what navigation did you use out on the trail? Peter Flazar wants to know.
So the Mid-State Trail is special in that it is one of the trails on the Far Out Guide app. Far Out is awesome. It used to be Gut Hook back in the days of the Appalachian Trail. It was called Gut Hook, but it's been purchased and expanded. And so you can download a really helpful guide that even offline, when you are in airplane mode and extreme battery saver mode, you can still open it and it will tell you where you are on the trail, where the next campsite is, where the next water is. And people who use it can comment and say, like, on this date, the water was dry. On this date, a tree fell in this campsite and you can't set up your tent here, that kind of thing.
I want to expand on that real quick. It has more information on it than you know what to do. Good information than you know what to do with. And for the cost it takes to get the 329-mile trail on your phone and be able to use it without GPS signal, it's mind-blowing to me. I mean, it's such an amazing tool for the Far Out app with the trails that's on there.
I wish they did more trails in PA.
Yeah, same.
I think there's only a couple. Like the AT definitely is covered by Far Out, and the Mid-State is, and I think there might be one other. The Kohana Trail might be.
I think it is. I think
on there. In the future, though, I was talking to Bob and I was talking about my problems with, I was running out of battery to the point where I woke up at 2 a.m. on the last day and I had 20% battery and I needed my phone to navigate that section. And I was so afraid it would die. I made it to the finish with 3% battery.
Oh my gosh.
But I was talking to Bob and he had mentioned just downloading a GPX onto your watch and putting your phone into extreme battery saver. And I think if I were to do another one of these again, I would go that route just so that my phone can be something that I don't have to use as much. And I don't have to get it out. My watch is already waterproof. So if it's raining, I don't have to worry about that whole ordeal of like getting my phone out to check where I am in the rain. So I do think it really worked for me, but I might change that for future.
Yeah, when you're worried about weight and batteries and stuff, I guess it makes a lot of sense.
And speaking of the future, what is the next FKT, if you can say so, or the next adventure? Bob Stewart, who has the male unsupported FKT for the Mid-State Trail, just chimed in with that question.
I am taking a break.
Good answer.
Yeah, I do think there will be another one in my future. The Mid-State Trail was definitely a really, really, it was probably too much to bite off for my first one, but I did it and it's done. I think I might try to find one that is actually more geared to my specific skill set so that I enjoy it a tad more. Not that I didn't enjoy this. I don't want it to sound like it wasn't something. I'm very glad I did it. But I do think I'm much more geared towards a trail with more climbing and descending. I might want to try to find something that has more of that.
Nice.
Every hill I got to on the Mid-State Trail, I was like, oh, thank God I can climb again.
And in the meantime, I mean, one of the adventures, you are the owner of Wild Roots Guides. So I want to give you a chance to talk about that, which is hiking and backpacking, guided backpacks through Pennsylvania for women. So tell us about that and where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find any adventures that are on the schedule for this year on my website at wildrootsguides.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Wild Roots Guides, just, same name, no fancy numbers or symbols or anything. And don't worry, we don't do super fast, crazy, intense stuff. That's just something I do in my free time. But primarily the hikes and the backpacking trips are in Pine Creek Valley or in Loyalsock State Forest. So very beautiful parts of Pennsylvania. The one I have coming up next is actually sold out. But that one is on the Mid-State Trail and goes through it's called the PA Waterfalls trip. So that one's going to be really fun. But there is one spot open on the PA Grand Canyon trip, which is going to be during peak laurel bloom. If you've never seen the mountain laurels in full bloom, it's a must do before, at some point in your life. And then I will be opening registration for the PA Hidden Gem, which is a much more moderate trail if you're not super excited for a challenging trip. That one's in Loyalsock. And then I have the last one of the year is the best one, and that's the Tie Dot and Fall Foliage. So go and check those out at wildrootsguides.com.
Hey, thank you, Erica. I've heard great stuff. I've had several friends go to your backpacking trips. I know some of them have tuned in tonight. And I haven't been able to get to one yet, but we've run together and hiked together, and it is always a pleasure.
Well, thank you. You too.
All right. Well, you go get another 4-hour section of nap in. We really appreciate you finding the time to come on and talk to us about the trip and what you accomplished. It's huge. Don't ever think it's not that big of a deal, because it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for being there at the finish. It was very special to see you there.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Well, enjoy your resting period. We look forward to seeing all the big things you do next. And thanks for being a supporter of the show.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Erica. You're amazing, and you're awesome, and you're super cool.
All right, Grace, take us out.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. You're awesome too, and you can tune in for more awesomeness every Monday, 7:30 Eastern time, and on the Spotify and the Apples and the YouTubes and all the things, and like it and share it with your friends, and we can have a good old time every single Monday. Thanks everybody. Bye.